everyone, it's Katie from Paradise Falls family. In this video we'll be taking you through our trip to Western Canada, including Vancouver, Vancouver Island and Whistler. We actually did this trip around 2.5 years ago now, but as we're between trips and looking forward to our trip to Canada this summer, we thought we'd throw in a little series talking through what we got up to. This trip was before we started this channel, so please forgive us for the iffy videos and footage. Hopefully we can still give you a good guide and some good tips though. We spoke through the first part of this trip in Vancouver in our last vlog, and here we'll concentrate on the next stop in Victoria on Vancouver Island, where we spent 3 nights. As always, we'll talk you through what we did day by day, and then in the second half of the vlog we'll go through some of the more practical bits and what went into our planning. So waking up in Vancouver, we quickly got on the road down to the Tawasin ferry terminal just south of the city to take us over to Vancouver Island. It's pretty easy to take the ferry across, with several ports along the coast offering ferries to different parts of the island, which is a massive area, so it's important to pick your route really carefully. We were aiming for the main city on the south coast, Victoria, and so had picked Tawasin to depart from and had pre-booked our tickets. These days you can get a return ticket for 4 with a car for just over 100 Canadian dollars. We were early to the port, having given ourselves plenty of time to allow for traffic, so we grabbed an early lunch at the cafe in the terminal before we were able to drive onto the ferry. Once parked, we headed upstairs to the main decks, which had loads of seating, a cafe and some shops. The journey over to Victoria was really smooth, taking around an hour and a half, and it was a really comfortable journey, enjoying the scenery as we crossed. We were on the lookout for whales, as the waters here are home to orcas, but unfortunately we didn't spot any this time. Arriving at the ferry terminal at Swartz Bay, it was so easy to just drive off and get on our way. It was a little while before we could check into our hotel in Victoria though, so we took the opportunity to see a little bit more of the island. The drive from Swartz Bay to Victoria is only around 30 minutes, and there are buses if you've made the journey without a car, so it's really easy to access. We carried on past Victoria, along the south coast a little, until we reached French Beach, around an hour past Victoria. This is somewhere we'd read about as a nice spot, and somewhere you can apparently sometimes see whales from the beach itself. We didn't on this occasion, but it was a really nice stop nonetheless. There's plenty of parking, a lovely pebble beach and a playground, so we spent maybe an hour here playing and skimming stones. It's well worth a stop if you're at this part of the island. Next up was Soak Potholes Provincial Park, around 30 minutes back towards Victoria. We'd read about this little spot as somewhere nice for a walk, to potentially see some salmon in the river, and in the summer it's a popular swimming spot. It was fairly empty at this time of year, but it was a lovely spot. Again, we were able to park up easily and walk down to the riverside, where there were some big rocks for the kids to climb on, and pools which, if you look carefully, were full of salmon. We can well imagine this being packed in the summer, but on a chilly October day there was just us and a couple of people walking their dogs, so it was a really nice, peaceful and fun stop before we headed back to Victoria. It was lovely driving in this part of the island, away from the busy city, and we just had amazing scenery all around us. By now, it was almost time to check in at the Fairmont Empress, an iconic hotel in Victoria that we were desperate to stay at, and we got a really great deal just coming out of the pandemic. Again, there was loads of parking underneath the hotel, and it was really easy to check in. The lobby and the hotel itself are absolutely wonderful, really opulent, yet we felt really comfortable, and the service was exceptional. They made a really big fuss of the kids, and there's a lot advertised for families throughout this hotel, so we felt right at home. There was a bit of a wait for our room, so we enjoyed our dinner in the restaurant out on the heated patio. Excellent quality and a lovely setting looking out over the harbour. Unfortunately, we didn't get any footage of our room, but this was really lovely. Loads of room for us all and a really nice bathroom. It was definitely a different feel to the Fairmont waterfront in Vancouver. This is much older and it didn't have that modern feel that the waterfront did. But that's to be expected for such an old and historic hotel, which has hosted kings, queens, presidents and celebrities over the years. After a relaxed evening in the hotel, the next day we were ready to get out and about again. Unfortunately, the weather was turning and a storm was in the area with rain and high winds. We wanted to get out and enjoy the outdoors, so we'd booked a session at the Wildplay Element Park for that morning. The rain had stopped and the park was still open, so we went for it. There are several of these parks across Canada, all offering different adventure courses, including high ropes and zipline activities. We'd found one just outside of Victoria that suited the kids who were 8 and 5 at the time and offered a kids course which was aimed at ages 5 to 12, so we thought it would be a really good starter course for them. The session lasts up to 90 minutes and adults can also do the course, although you do have to duck a bit at times. It takes you 15 feet up in the air across wobbly bridges, tight ropes, zip lines and cargo nets. You're set up with a safety harness and are attached to a safety line the whole time, so we felt completely safe and secure. The kids could navigate the course themselves, but did need a little bit of help now and again when moving from one station to the next and moving along the safety line, so it was handy to have one of us up there with them. At 15 feet it didn't feel particularly high in the air, so the kids took to it really easily and we had a brilliant time, completing the whole course twice in the session. The park is set in the woods and has lots of other more challenging courses, but this one was perfect for us and we'd really recommend it for young families looking to get out and do something a bit different. For a session these days it comes in at around 90 Canadian dollars for 2 kids and an accompanying adult, which we think was really reasonable for the experience. So a definite recommendation, and I've included a link in the description below. After being out in the cold most of the morning, next up we decided to head to a mall for a bit of shopping and to warm up a little. We'd spotted the Mayfield shopping centre on our way out of the city, so stopped in here, bought a few bits, got some snacks and warmed up. As malls go, this was pretty standard, but the kids had a blast on some ride-on animals we were able to hire there, so they buzzed around the shopping centre and had loads of fun, before we headed back to the hotel. The Empress offers a brilliant afternoon tea that we were determined to try while we were here. This was a bit of an extravagance for us, but we pre-booked it as a late lunch as a treat and had a lovely time. The service was impeccable. They were really good for allergies and they have a Prince and Princess menu aimed at kids ages 5 to 12, so it's a lovely treat for the whole family. It wasn't cheap at around $100 for adults and $60 for kids, but we've certainly seen higher prices, and given the setting, we'd really recommend this for a holiday treat if you're here. With the weather not being great, we spent the rest of the afternoon in the hotel. I had a session booked in the spa as a treat, a facial and a massage. Unfortunately, they were short-staffed as staff hadn't been able to get in because of the storm, so I was only able to have the facial, but it was really lovely nevertheless, and then I joined Greg and the kids in the indoor pool, which was a great spot that the kids loved swimming in. After spending the afternoon chilling at the pool and in the hotel, we ventured back out in the rain to the old spaghetti factory around the corner. Something nice and easy for the kids that did the trick, and it was really reasonably priced, before heading back to get some rest. The next day we had whale watching booked with Eagle Wing Tours from the wharf just outside of the hotel. However, due to the storm and the weather, unfortunately this was cancelled. We'd booked on the semi-covered tour at 10 AM, which was initially rearranged for 2:30 in the hope that the weather would improve, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. I have to say Eagle Wing were excellent, keeping us up to date via email and text, and then giving us a full refund when the tour was cancelled, which was appreciated as the tour was going to cost around $500. We were gutted to miss this as it was one of the things we were most looking forward to. The waters around Vancouver Island and the Salish Sea are some of the best waters for viewing orcas in their natural habitat, and we thought the kids would have loved this. We'd carefully picked our tour operator and cruise. We'll include a link in the description below. We'll definitely be doing a whale watching tour this summer on our Canada and Alaska trip, and hope that one day we can come back to Vancouver Island and get out on the water. The tour was supposed to take 4 hours, so really would have taken up a good portion of the day. So with some unexpected free time, we decided to explore Victoria itself a little bit more. The rain had eased off, but it was still incredibly windy, so to begin with we made the short walk up to Beacon Hill Park and let the kids race around on the playground here. The park is home to the world's tallest totem pole, so we stopped by that and then headed down towards the water to see the waves and in the vain hope of spotting a whale. Of course we didn't, but we headed out onto Finlayson Point, which juts out into the bay and offers some brilliant views. The waters were pretty crazy and the wind really strong, so much that we didn't feel safe out here, so headed back pretty quickly. It offered wonderful views though, and also proved to us that yes, it really was the right decision not to go out on a boat that day. Back in the park we carried on wandering, playing in the leaves, and we headed back into town towards Fisherman's Wharf, another nice spot in the harbour with some shops and food stalls to enjoy, as well as lots of houseboats. We picked up a few bits for lunch and some treats, and then jumped on one of the water taxis that dot around the harbour that took us back to the Empress. This was a fun way to get around and keep an eye out for wildlife on the way, as we spotted a couple of seals playing in the water around the boats. By now the rain was back and pretty heavy, so it was another afternoon in and around the hotel and the pool. We did venture out later though for a bit of shopping down the main street, which is a lovely area, and we stopped for dinner at a diner along the way before calling it a night. The next morning we said goodbye to the Empress and headed up the coast towards Nanaimo, where we were catching the ferry back across to the mainland to head up to Whistler, which I'll talk about in our next video. It's safe to say the weather had derailed our plans a fair bit in Victoria, but nevertheless we still had a really good time, enjoyed some fun family time, and we loved the Fairmont Empress. It's a wonderful part of the world that we'd love to return to one day. There were a few things we didn't get to do in the Victoria area, most notably Butch Hart Gardens, which is a renowned botanical garden and it's often listed as one of the best things to do in Victoria. We did really look at this, but in the end we just didn't think our kids would get much out of it, so we decided to skip it. With limited time we decided to spend our time elsewhere, but it'll definitely be on our list if we can return one day. I think then with more time we would have liked to have spent at least a few more days here to get further north and see more of the island. Vancouver Island is a massive area, taking well over 5 hours to drive to the north of the island, so there's so much to explore, and it would have been great to get out and see some bears and the forests that cover the island. Unfortunately we just didn't have time on this trip, but it's somewhere we're really keen to return to. As with our time in Vancouver and Whistler, next time we'd visit in the summer to enjoy the better weather. As you've seen, we did suffer with the weather on this trip and it was a bit of a downer. We always knew that to some extent coming into the trip, but it's definitely something to keep in mind if you have a choice of when to visit, particularly for somewhere so outdoorsy such as British Columbia. So that brings me to the end of this video and our time on Vancouver Island. We're also going to cover our time in Whistler, but we'll save that for the next video. We hope that this overview was useful for your trip, and if you've got any questions or any other tips, please let me know in the comments below. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more of our trips, as we've got loads more to come, including our Mediterranean cruise in a few weeks and our Canada and Alaska trip this summer. Thank you all so much for watching.